Sometimes the hardest part isn't the thing itself, it's how hard it is to let the thing go. Not the argument, not the mistake, not the comment that stayed with you longer than it should have, but the quiet resistance inside you that says, I can't just drop this. People often assume that holding on means you care too much, that if you were calmer, or wiser, or less sensitive, you'd be able to release things more easily. But that's not really what's happening. Letting go feels hard because, in many cases, holding on once kept you safe. Your mind doesn't cling to things randomly. It holds on because at some point, paying attention mattered. Maybe noticing small changes helped you avoid conflict. Maybe replaying conversations helped you stay connected. Maybe caring deeply helped you belong, succeed, or be taken seriously. So when something unsettles you now, your mind doesn't ask, is this worth my energy? It asks, what happens if I stop caring? And for many people, that question feels risky, because letting go can feel like giving up control, or lowering standards, or saying something didn't matter when it did. Sometimes it even feels like betraying yourself. There's also something else that makes letting go difficult. Unfinished things pull at the mind. When something feels unresolved, a conversation that didn't end well, a decision you're unsure about, a moment you wish you'd handled differently, your mind keeps it open, not because it wants to torture you, but because open loops demand attention. Your mind is trying to complete something that doesn't actually have a clear ending. And that can be exhausting, because no amount of thinking can fully close what was emotional, relational, or ambiguous. Yet the mind keeps trying. There's another reason letting go feels so difficult, and it's one people rarely talk about. Sometimes what you're holding on to isn't just the thing itself. It's what the thing represents. A small comment can carry a much bigger meaning, not because of the words, but because of what they touched. A fear of being misunderstood, a worry about being replaceable, a sense that you're already behind. So even when the situation is over, the meaning lingers. In those moments, the mind isn't really replaying the event. It's checking something deeper. Am I still okay? Am I still valued? Did this change how I'm seen? And when those questions feel unanswered, the mind stays close, not to the problem, but to the possibility of threat. This is why small things can feel strangely heavy. They're rarely just small. There's also a quiet identity piece here. If you've spent a long time being the person who thinks things through, who notices details, who cares deeply, then letting go can feel unfamiliar, almost like stepping away from who you've learned to be. For some people, holding on became part of staying competent, or kind, or responsible, or emotionally available. So loosening that grip can feel like losing something important, even when it's costing you peace. This is why telling yourself to just let it go often creates more tension, not less. It asks your system to give up something before it feels safe to do so. Letting go, then, isn't about forcing yourself to stop thinking. It's about noticing when thinking has shifted from being useful to being repetitive, from helping you understand to simply keeping something alive. Many people struggle with letting go because they believe it requires certainty. They think, once I understand this properly, I'll be able to move on. But understanding doesn't always bring release. Sometimes release comes from allowing something to remain imperfectly understood. There's a quiet kind of letting go that doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't involve deciding anything firmly. It doesn't require closure, forgiveness, or clarity. It simply involves loosening your grip, allowing the thought to be there without following it every time it appears. This isn't giving up. It's recognizing that you don't need to carry everything to prove it mattered. Some things mattered then. They don't need to keep mattering now. If letting go feels hard for you, it doesn't mean you're failing. It usually means you learned, somewhere along the way, that being attentive was important, that noticing things had value, and it still does. You're just learning slowly, that not everything needs the same level of care forever. You're allowed to set things down without resolving them. You're allowed to move forward while something remains unanswered. You're allowed to care without carrying. Sometimes letting go doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, over time, when the mind realizes it's safe to rest.